Hi, I'm Lauren McCracken, and this is my podcast, Cracken's Corner, Episode 5, Loneliness. So before we get into our main topic, I wanted to say Happy Pride Month to all of my beautiful LGBTQA plus people, all my friends and family, and everyone I haven't met yet that I love and care about. I see you and I appreciate you and I love you so much, and I want you to know that people care about you, even if maybe you don't have that support system in your life at the moment. There are people out here who love you and are so happy that you're here and are appreciative of all the beauty that you add to the world. I had a really nice little birthday that just passed. I got this beautiful gift from my friend Sky. She is an incredible artist, and I thought that was so sweet that she made that for me. So I just wanted to have it visible throughout the podcast as just, a little bit of gratitude to her. So today I really wanted to talk about loneliness. It's something that I feel our world and even our culture just now has experienced so much of through this pandemic. And really even beyond that, just in general, it's something that I feel many of us are still uncomfortable talking about and admitting to feeling, which is ridiculous because it's such a common experience for so many of us, myself included. And I think it's something we should be able to discuss and be open about. So I found this really great quote about it. Loneliness and the feeling of being unwanted is the most terrible poverty. And that was said by Mother Teresa, who is now actually a saint. I didn't even realize that until recently. I thought that was cool. And it's interesting because she worked with so many people living in almost unimaginable poverty. And she could see how much loneliness affected them in that kind of a unique way. And it really does affect everyone, I guess, in its own kind of shadow. It's one of the hardest things, I think, to handle. And generally, it seems to stem from this feeling of a lack of connection. And it can be a direct consequence of falling out or losing trust with someone, or even just in someone passing away. It can take on several different forms. This first one, I think, is probably one that is experienced the most commonly, but we don't discuss it as much, or maybe it doesn't come up first when people hear the word loneliness, would be with from that lack of connection with family, friends, and our communities. Secondly, romantic, which is the most obvious one to me. The third is actually spiritual, because I think that's an important component in our lives. At least for most people I know who have some sense of spirituality, whether that includes religion or not, is that there's a feeling of a separation or a lack of connection to God or whatever you believe is the divine force in the world. I do believe that most people have or will experience loneliness within their lifetimes in one or another way, but very few people speak openly about it, and there's still a lot of stigma around it, so I'd like for us to try to break through that a bit. So when I think about loneliness, the first thought that actually came into my mind when I started to consider this topic, which my friend Tom Liu in Australia had recommended for me to kind of tackle, hi Tom, was back when I was a kid, in school, we had the opportunity to visit older people in nursing homes. And I loved doing that as a kid. And I also did it later in college. So of course there were kind of different experiences, but I remember going there and talking with these residents, and they would tell me stories all these stories about their lives and their children and their spouses and their careers and their travels and all these incredible things that they had done over the course of their lifetime. And they were like really interesting people. It kind of stunned me when I found that out, because they had done these incredible things and helped so many people and really lived out a full life themselves, and somehow had lost touch with their loved ones through all different means. I hoped that I could be of some help to them to feel a little bit less lonely in this world, especially when they're heading in towards the end chapters of their lifetime. And so I think, someday that, God willing, that'll be us too. If we're lucky, we will get to live to be quite old, and you hope that when you make it to that age, someone will be there to see you and to talk to you and to care about you and show you some compassion. I remember how much these residents were yearning for human contact and to feel seen and cared about by someone, even if it was just for a little while. The vast majority of them were really enthusiastic and grateful for the little things that I would be there to do. Like when I was a kid, we would go and do art projects with them. Or when I was older, we would go and paint some little senior ladies' nails, and they got a really big kick out of that. And sometimes they would just want to teach you about something, and you would listen and you'd learn something new, and it really made them happy. It brought them a lot of joy. And I think because I've had those experiences in nursing homes and getting to see these people, it gave me a lot of perspective as a kid about how I would treat my own grandparents, because of course when I was a child, my grandparents were still on the younger side, and I knew that eventually they would be the older residents in the nursing home. They would be that same age, and I tried to, and I still try to, spend more time with my grandparents and try to call them and talk to them and text them and check up on them and let them know how much I care about them, because I feel really lucky that they're around and that I have the opportunity to talk to them. I'm just so grateful, honestly, that I grew up with even 3 grandparents. My father's father passed way before I was born, so I unfortunately never had the chance to talk to him. I wish I could, but I'll have to wait until, the afterlife. If everything goes well, then I'll see him in heaven. But I'm so glad that I had my grandmom and my nanny and pop-pop around for me, and, I'm 31 now. I'm grateful that 2 of them are still alive. During the pandemic, speaking of my grandmom, we weren't able to visit her this past Christmas because she had been moved into a nursing home for a higher level of care that she required at that point. And we knew heading into it that she was approaching the end of her life, and I really wanted to write something special in her Christmas card for her, because I knew I just had a feeling, that she wouldn't be around for a lot longer. So I tried to take the time to write something to her to tell her how insanely proud I am of her, and how honored I am to be her granddaughter and to carry on a little bit of her spirit, and just how much I loved her. She was extremely well-spoken, extremely feisty, extremely confident, extremely intelligent woman who scrimped and saved and worked her butt off to take care of my family, especially, my father and his sisters and brother when she became widowed quite young. And I just had so much admiration for this woman. I am so proud of her. And, generally I'm not too mushy with her because she's not a very mushy person. She is very down to earth and very hardworking and rather serious, but really funny and just a joy to be around. So I'm glad that I was able to at least I tried my best to put into words all that stuff to her. And I feel better knowing that she got to read that, and feel a little bit less lonely during the pandemic, because we couldn't go and see her. There were like weekly video chats and stuff, but it's not quite the same to me as that one-on-one FaceTime. So unfortunately, like I said, I kind of had a feeling, and we all kind of had a feeling, that she wouldn't be around for much longer. And she did. She passed in February, and she made it to 90 years old, which is incredible to me. That's just so amazing. I'm so glad that she got to live such an incredible full life and see the world change in so many different ways. And I feel really privileged to have had her in my life for 30 years. I know a lot of people my age don't have any grandparents left. I'm so happy that she was around for this long, and I'm proud to say that I knew her. So I guess moving on, within my own life, I would say loneliness has been a pretty constant experience for me since I was a pretty young kid, which isn't surprising because I've had depression since I was a really young kid too. And a lot of times loneliness and depression go hand in hand, which is part of why I'm going to include the number for the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, the crisis line, in the credits and on, in the description, just in case anyone's feeling that way, to know that they're not alone and that there are actually people and resources out there that can help. That can really help you feel better if this is not like your standard loneliness like I'm going to speak about. If it's something beyond that and you don't feel comfortable and you're not sure what to do, they are there, and they're around 24/7. You can call them at any time, and I absolutely recommend it if you're feeling that way. I would say personally, loneliness evolved in my life. From when I was a young kid, I was like a very romantic, idealistic child. From a very young age, I was just dreaming about being swept off my feet by some amazing guy, like a Prince Charming type who would make my life better and more magical just by caring about me. And then it kind of changed as I got older into longing for more of a spiritual relationship with God and connecting with like this idea of the saints and those who have passed before us, with my family who had passed before me, and understanding that, feeling that connection with them, even though they weren't here anymore. And then I think it evolved again into a desire for really intense and close friendships. Like I have, aside from my amazing husband, really two very solid friends, Pat and Brian. They are my best friends in the whole world. And I have a lot of other great friends, but as far as like people where I feel like I can be 100% myself around at any time and are always there for me and are consistently like down to help me whenever I'm having a hard time, it's them. But yeah, aside from those two people, I would still really like to expand my inner circle of trust and companionship out just a little bit more. Maybe not a ton, but a few more really awesome, solid friends like that would be amazing. And I'm always looking for that. But yeah, of course, it's not easy to do, but that's a goal of mine. I've noticed that, especially within recent months when I haven't been uploading, I was having a really hard time with my anxiety, especially, and depression. And I have a lot of trouble reaching out for help when I'm feeling lonely. And it's sort of a joke. If you're familiar with MBTI, I'm an ENFJ, and it's like super obvious once you know about that stuff that like my type, for example, and other very strong extroverted feeling types often have trouble admitting when we're sad or when we're like upset and we need help, because we like to help other people. So usually instead of telling our friends, like, hey, can you come over? I'm having a really hard time. I need someone to talk to. We'll reach out to our friends instead and be like, how are you doing? How can we help you? It's almost funny if it wasn't sad, but it's a little bit of both, I guess. And I feel like I'm hesitant to reach out, even though I know I have people that I can trust, because there is still that part of me that's self-conscious and still doubts and is like, oh, like, I don't want to come off as needy or as like someone who's difficult to deal with. It's funny because I think we are our own worst critics, because if a friend had come to me with that, I wouldn't see them that way. But for some reason, I judge myself like that. It's silly, but I shouldn't do it. So I'm trying to correct that. So some new ideas I have about loneliness. I think the first step in dealing with it, first of all, is just accepting it and calling it what it is and being like, yeah, I am lonely. And like, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with me, and not being ashamed of that. It can be kind of difficult to do because a lot of us are proud or, self-conscious, but it's important. And after that, I would advise that you actually identify the source of your loneliness. Like I stated earlier, I kind of saw it coming from 3 different places, because once you identify what kind of loneliness it is, you can take action to try to help correct it and try to do something about it, because it's there for a reason. It's supposed to be like an alarm system, kind of like anger, telling you like you're angry because something is violating you and your needs. It's the same thing with loneliness. You're upset because you feel like you're missing something. So if the cause is social, like if it's from a lack or of connection with family, friends, or community, if you still have good relationships with these people, then be courageous, and please be courageous for yourself and reach out to them. Think of something fun and enjoyable that you can enjoy together, that some kind of activity. Even if it's something small, it doesn't have to be a big elaborate day out. It can just be sitting in together for the night, talking and laughing or watching a silly movie, whatever. It doesn't have to be a big plan, because even that can really lift your spirit back up and make you feel less lonely. If you don't have those sort of people in your world yet, or maybe they have exited for whatever reason, there are alternatives out there. I would absolutely recommend volunteering for a local organization, like an animal rescue or a local theater company or a nursing home, something like that, because it's good for your heart just to be out there making art and putting beauty back into the world. And it's good for your spirit too, to be out there volunteering. And it not only does it make a difference in the lives of others, but it also kind of puts you into contact with other people who have those same intentions. And they can be really cool people that you just don't know yet. So that's a really good thing to try. If the cause is romantic, like you're looking for a partner, you're looking for a boyfriend or a girlfriend or, whatever, then it's a little bit more complicated, I'll be honest. I do think that's a lot harder because a lot of people are out there looking for that person in their life. I think the first thing to know then would be to know exactly what you're looking for in a partner, what kind of qualities, what kind of relationship, what kind of dynamic you're searching for, just so you're clear as to your expectations and that you also know who you are and what you bring to that dynamic and what you have to offer. Because the reality is you have to know yourself really well in order to establish a very stable kind of relationship, assuming that's what you're also looking for. So I would definitely recommend knowing yourself and knowing what you're looking for just before you do anything else. And so there's a few different approaches you can take to trying to solve this. The most obvious being getting out on some popular dating apps. There are tons of them. Try to share a little bit about who you are and just be real with people. I'm not saying to lay all your cards on the table by any means, but just you don't need to lie. You don't need to talk yourself up to be anything other than what you really are, because most people can see straight through BS, so there's no point in doing it. A little bit more subtle of an approach, which I've had a lot of success with myself, and most people I know have had success with, would just be to kind of ask around with your own friends and see if they know of anybody who is single and looking for that they believe would be looking for someone like you, and then you may end up meeting someone through that mutual friend. That seems to be the most successful way. That's how I met my husband. That's how my parents met each other. That's how a lot of my aunts and uncles met each other. Like, tons and tons of our friends had met their future spouse or partner through that route. So generally, as long as you do it with a lot of respect and consent and, take your time with it and be patient, then it seems to work out pretty well for most people. There's even a different approach you can try, which is just going out for a new environment. Whether that means you're moving, maybe you're relocating yourself, or you're just going to a new place, you're picking up a new hobby. Maybe you're taking a cooking class, and that might be a place to meet somebody. Maybe you decide you want to learn how to golf, and you start going to your local putting green. That could be somewhere that you meet somebody if that's something that you like. Because generally, kind of like what I said before with the friends, new environment kind of throws you into a whole new set of possibilities. Then thirdly, of course, if it is a spiritual type of loneliness, there are things you can do. If you're looking for that deeper connection to God or whatever you believe in, you can seek out a community of other people who believe what you believe in, whether that's an organized religion or something separate from that. That's all good. There are places, some places online, some of them are physical places like a church or a synagogue or a mosque or a meeting house, where you can get that sense of community and feel more connected to whatever your beliefs are. I also think adding new spiritual practices can help. It definitely has helped me in my life a lot. And they can be different for everyone, of course, depending on how you see that spirituality in your life. For me personally, I'm a Catholic, so I recommend things like meditation, and praying the rosary has been an extremely positive thing in my life. There's something called Lectio Divina, which is a really cool practice to look into if that's a thing that you're into. But yeah, there's a lot of things out there, and I'd encourage you to explore those, because that can really deepen your relationship. And also, I would encourage you to read about the lives of model practitioners of your beliefs. It could be reading a biography of someone who was really inspiring to you, or maybe even reading one of their spiritual direction kind of books. Like The Interior Castle, I've heard, is an incredible book. It was written by Saint Teresa of Avila. Of course, she was a Catholic nun, but I've heard from people who are not Catholic or Christian who have read it and they just think it's a great book. But I'm sure there's a ton of them out there that are similar, that really offer a lot of insight into the spiritual world and how to approach deepening that relationship with God. And like I had mentioned before, obviously, if this is not your standard loneliness, like I had mentioned, please seek professional help. Please, call a psychologist, talk to a therapist. I have one. I have an amazing psychologist. I would spend any amount of money in the world to keep him because he's worth it. He's helped me so much over the last few years, and I would definitely recommend seeking that out. And if it is a crisis, once again, please call that hotline and don't worry about it. There's no judgment. If this is something you need, please take care of yourself, because you are so worth protecting and preserving, and your life will get better if you seek out resources for it. There are people out here who really care about you, even if you haven't met them yet. Please remember that whatever form your loneliness takes on, even if it's maybe not at the crisis level, like I said, please know that there are people out in this world that care about you and love you and want the best for you. You may just have to find them, but we exist. And just wrapping up the show, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who does watch this and does listen to this. I know it's a very small community right now, and that's okay, but I'm grateful. We just got 26 subscribers. Like, it's so tiny in the grand scheme of everything. It's very tiny, but I'm still really grateful for that, because I'm just a single person doing this with the help of my incredible husband helping me to edit and film and everything. So this is a 2-person team, and we're just going to keep on moving and trying to make this into something that hopefully is worth your time and is helpful to someone. So it does help us out, obviously, if you subscribe. If you have a channel on YouTube, or if you have a whatever subscription to YouTube, please subscribe to us, like our videos, comment on our videos, and please share it with somebody if you think it would be helpful for them, because that's the whole reason we're doing this. But yeah, again, thank you so much for all the messages I have received from people who've watched this and appreciate it, because that just means the world to me. And you can send your ideas. If you have an idea like my friend Tom did for a topic, if you have any comments, any stories, questions, please send it to our podcast at krackenscornerpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much once again for tuning in, and I'm hoping I will come to you again next week with a new episode. Bye.